Hey folks, Randy Newberg here. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Leupold's Hunt Talk Radio. It's an early morning here at the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Rendezvous in Missoula, Montana. And fortunately, I found the two sober guys last night who aren't hungover this morning, and we own the joint right now. We're going to do a podcast, and these guys are people I respect a ton. I think I could say that about everybody who's a serious traditional archer, traditional bow shooter, because I always say when I grow up, I want to be a traditional archer. And these guys are really humble about it and don't make a big deal about it. But for someone like me, who it's always been their dream, I kind of have them out there as my aspirational guys. So we're gonna talk about a whole host of cool, fun things today. But before we do that, we're gonna quickly talk about who makes this podcast possible. The title sponsor, Leupold Optics. You guys hear me say it all the time. They love our self-guided public land message. They were here at the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Rendezvous, and they were doing their normal great behind-the-scenes, low-key support of conservation and public lands, and they want no credit for it. They don't want to say anything, but you know what? I'm going to say it, and I'm going to give them credit for it. So I thank Leupold for their support of us and public lands. The other is Onyx Maps. You hear me so often talk about how critical Onyx Maps is to how I hunt, how I apply, what I do, all my research. It's amazing, and they were here also. Every company that I work with is a big supporter of public lands. Onyx Maps is part of that. And if you buy anything related to their Hunt app, which is their smartphone app, or their web map, which is their computer-based map system, and you use promo code RANDY, R-A-N-D-Y, you're going to get 20% off. So onyxmaps.com, use promo code RANDY and save yourself some money. The other is gohunt.com. I use them for all of my research stuff. I used to have files and piles and cabinets and just folders stacked everywhere of all my research information. And my desktop was littered with all these shortcut links to 20 different websites. Well, GoHunt now consolidates all that to one place, and they have a thing that they're working on with us for all of our listeners and viewers. If you want to be part of their insider service, you go to gohunt.com/insider. And if you use promo code RANDY, you're going to get a $50 Sportsman's Warehouse gift card. So we're making this easy for everybody. You know, when you're shopping, you want to make it as easy as possible. So gohunt.com/insider and use promo code RANDY and get yourself $50. And then the reason I saved this one for last is because this guy with Orion Coolers has been on the podcast before, and it was a year ago that Damon and I did a podcast here, and he's had all kinds of cool adventures and new things going on in the interim. But Orion Coolers, as you know, is what we live out of for about 4 or 5 months out of the year. They take care of us. They take care of the meat that we harvest. They take care of the food while we're out there, and they're just as tough and as durable, and they're just the best cooler out there. Take my word for it on that. I've ruined just about everything in the hunting industry, and I've yet to hurt an Orion cooler. So again, we're making this easy. Promo code RANDY. Go to orioncoolers.com, and when you buy one, if you use promo code RANDY, you're going to get yourself this really cool tumbler that has the Hunt Talk logo on it. And I don't care if you want to use it to drink water, coffee, wine, beer, doesn't matter to me. But anyhow, folks, I'm going to introduce you here, and some of you probably know Clay Hayes. He's well known in the traditional archery world. Runs a website, blog called Twisted Stave. And also with me is Damon Bungard from Orion Coolers. And besides being with Orion Coolers, he now took the dive into the TV world and is producing a show called Orion Chronicles, which we're going to get into that because I did not know that backpack hunting was something you did in the East. But Damon, in his first episode, showed the world how you can put your backpack on, go camp out in the wilds of Tennessee, and shoot whitetail deer.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of more of a cannonball than a dive, but yeah, we're
okay.
in there.
Oh, well, thanks, guys. I appreciate you being here, especially on an early morning I feel like this morning when I walked through here, I felt like when you drive to the trailhead and you're the first guy there because everybody else, you drove by their camps and they're still sleeping.
Yeah, it was pretty scarce this morning down here.
It's been 3 good or 2.5 good days of people enjoying themselves and just trying to have some good camaraderie. And I think last night, things went a little long.
I look forward to these things every year. I've been to everyone except the first one. Yeah, and they just get better every year.
Yeah, this is my third that I've been to, and but Clay, just about, last year the last 2 years you had a video film that they played here.
Yep,
and. Twisted Stave. Tell me how you got into Twisted Stave.
So, idle time, what is it? Something about the devil's hands.
Yeah.
Idle time. So, it's so about 5 years ago, my second son, Finn, was born. And there was Finn, yep.
F-I-N-N?
F-E-N.
Oh, F-E-N.
Yep, like a wetland.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
But there were some complications with the pregnancy, and so we had to spend a lot of time in the Spokane Children's Hospital.
Okay.
And I was there for over a month.
Wow.
And so I had a lot of time off work, just kind of spending time with my wife up there. I had the laptop with me, and I was already making a couple of videos, and so I'd read through all the books that I had brought, and so I started researching how to make a website, and that's the way the website got started, right there in the hospital room with my son.
Wow.
But I started producing videos on bow building and all things traditional archery. Traditional archery has been a huge part of my life for probably over 15 years, almost 20 years. And probably for the past 15, I've hunted almost exclusively with traditional archery gear, and mainly with bows that I've made myself. So,
twistedstave.com.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's pretty easy. That .net thing, that's kind of fallen by the wayside, I think.
I think it largely has, yeah.
Yeah. When I started doing this gig, some Chinese outfit bought the domain name randynewberg.com. And so when I was it took 6 years before they finally let it expire. And you can have these domain firms go and buy it back. And so I had this domain firm just watching it, and they sent me an email one day and said, hey, this Chinese company let randynewberg.com expire. Because I thought I was going to have to use randynewberg.net, randynewberg.tv, whatever. And it expired, and I bought that thing so fast. It cost me like $200. So that's what a lot of people are like, well, why did it used to be onyourownadventures.com and now it's randynewberg.com? Well,
that's why. It's
just way easier. So, but twistedstave.com, you also have a YouTube channel where a lot of people can go watch this stuff.
Yeah, I've got most of my videos on the website, but it's also on YouTube. But then there's other stuff on YouTube that are not on my website. Mm-hmm. Basically, on the website, I've got a page that's dedicated to traditional archery and bow building, and then I've got a page that's more like backcountry, like survival skills type thing, and that houses a bunch of the videos that I've done with BHA on, just all sorts of outdoor skills, everything from how to rig up a block and tackle to hang your pack with just some carabiners and paracord. To tracking or pitching a tent with a tarp, just things like that.
Yeah. And what's the name of the YouTube channel? Is it Clay Hayes or is it Twisted Stave?
If you Google Clay Hayes, it's going to come up.
As you can see, Clay is very focused on content and what he's telling the world, and a lot less focused on promoting himself. See, us guys in TV, we got to be...
I haven't quite got that figured out yet.
And Damon, you just premiered your first episode of the Orion Chronicles.
We did last weekend, yeah.
On Sportsman's Channel.
That's correct.
Yeah, and I felt lucky that you sent me draft copies to watch, and I was impressed, man. It was,
Thanks.
I don't know anybody who thinks of Tennessee as a place to throw your backpack on, go camp out overnight on public land, and hunt whitetails or hunt whatever.
Yeah, it's certainly it's a cultural shift there. You know, when I first moved there, we live on the edge of the Cumberland Plateau, and if you're not familiar with Tennessee's kind of geography, it's most of the state's largely flat, western side. And then when you hit over towards the Smokies on the east, there's this big plateau edge, and just a bunch of watersheds, big steep gradient fall, you know, and it's the reason that Jackson Kayak is there. It's the whitewater mecca because of all these different steep watersheds and steep creeks that are there.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, Eric Jackson's house is a mile from one of the best freestyle play spots in the world. Training spots at Rock Island State Park. Our factory's 15 minutes from it.
Okay.
But that geography just keeps people out of a lot of areas because you can't get four-wheelers in, you can't get a truck in, it's steep.
Sounds like where I want to go.
Yeah, and the thing is, you're never that far. All on the edge of the Smokies, next to the national park, is a bunch of public open hunting areas for deer, for bear, and really up and down the Appalachians. The whole spine, really, I mean, you can hunt off the AT, you can backpack hunt off the Appalachian Trail. That runs for 2,000 miles from Georgia to Maine. So, and along the spine of those mountains is almost all national forest. So you have to check the state regs where you are, but it's just culturally people just don't see that really as an option. And part of it's a need desire function. You know, a lot of people, if they have managed property and they have planted fields, and that there's no real need to put in the level of effort, but they're just thinking, I just need to get a deer. Well, I look at it as, well, do you want to have a really fun adventure? You know, I've always liked mountaineering. I've liked backpacking. I like to me, a backpack hunt, I got to go backpacking and I got to go hunting at the same time. Great. So
why not?
So why not? It's fun. And yeah, you know, it was one of those things. I started it when I moved down there from Tennessee or from Vermont. And, you know, my friends in Vermont, I had friends who would go over and do like backpack long trips in the Adirondacks, another great area, wide open, big mountains. And you could do, you know, week-long trips near Adirondacks hunting and never see a person.
Upstate New York.
Yeah, and big deer and, you know, good game. You know, not going to see a lot of deer, but the egg structure is quality.
Yeah.
And then
you might be talking Randy into going and filming back east in spite of my resistance to do that all the time.
Well, you know, planted the seed. Yeah. So again, a cannonball right into that pool. But, you know, we wanted the opening show to be kind of Tennessee. You know, that's where we make our products. That's our home. You know, you'll see some of my home in the show. You see kind of where we are, and so we wanted that kind of to be the initial kickoff episode. And so far, I've gotten great feedback, and that's been good. I was nervous. It's a nervous thing, you know, getting on TV and exposing yourself like that. It sets you up to a lot of criticism or a lot of praise. But yeah, I'm sure you know nothing about that. But,
the whole open yourself up to criticism. Yeah, I'm quite familiar with that part.
I gotta thank everybody who's reached out to me on Instagram, Facebook, you know, emailed info at. It's been a lot of complimentary stuff of just like you said. Oh, it's so great to see something in the East on TV. Oh, it's, you know, so cool. And like, you know, we do that in West Virginia and nobody ever talks about it.
It's so different than any other whitetail stuff you ever see on television. It's completely different.
That's what was so cool. I have never seen anything like that ever on TV. Mm-hmm. And I've never even read about it in magazines. There's not been any media platform where I've seen someone go backpack whitetail hunt in the East like you do.
And it was super intimidating. It was hard, you know, going in with my cameraman, Steve Fisher, who's, you know, wonderfully great kayaker, has done a lot of big kayak expeditions and all over the world in Congo and stuff. And, but he's not a hunter. And I'm saying to myself, you know, usually I go in and out of that where I hunt. I know. Last year I didn't kill a buck. I didn't kill a deer last year. And I'm like, okay, so here comes the camera guy, and we're going to go in and we're going to do this. I'm like, well, I already have my I live here. It's low, low odds of success, high out, good reward if we get it done. And I'm like, it's serious drought. It's crazy loud. I'm like, we're going to have 4 feet. This isn't like he's going to move too much. He's going to mess the camera up. It's tight cover. I mean, you don't see deer in there until they're 50 yards from you. Yeah. So it's like, but we were able to get it done, and I just came out. I had no idea. I mean, somebody was smiling down on me, helping me make that work for sure, because it was an unbelievable story that we were able to capture on film.
Yeah. Well, don't be bashful about a little luck rolling your way. We've all hunted enough to know that there's plenty of times where we felt like we deserved one, but bad luck came rolling through. And I tell people that my general theory is that hunting is about 70 to 75% hard work and knowledge. It's probably 20% effort and thinking it through, and then the other 5% is luck.
Absolutely.
And if it's bad luck, the other 95%, no matter how much you knew, how experienced you are, or how hard you work, that 5% of bad luck can sometimes wipe that out.
Absolutely. I would say it's a game of probability and statistics. As a math thinker, that's how I look at it. Everything's a math game. Yeah. It's all statistics. And
you got to be out there, though. I mean,
that's it. That's the truth, Clay. Yeah. How many people don't put in their time? Mm-hmm. I think putting in your time is as much as possible. And
that was the key that's what I emphasized in my slideshow here. Here I did a presentation on Eastern backcountry options, and people, it's unlike the West where you can go out, climb a mountain, and you have visibility. You can glass and find game, strategize. Mm-hmm. I don't care how big the mountain is in the East, you can't see through that tree cover. So you have to be in there, and you have to put your time in and figure out. And that's what I talked about in the presentation here, was getting out there, out of season, finding the funnel points, finding the deer sign, putting that time in so you can make a good strategy when the time is right. Where I hunt, I have it mapped out where, scrape patterns are, funnel patterns are. When deer are there, they leave sign. Yeah. Whether it's sheds, whether it's prints, whether it's rubs, whether it's scrapes. You can find that stuff, a lot of it, after season, and especially late after the season's over. You can find the worn down foot trails and just follow them, kind of map out, figure out where the game is moving, and strategize around that when it comes time for the season. It's not going in blind can be rough. You have to go in thinking, okay, I got to go in and learn first, and then figure it out. Yeah. Hunt the sign, and then hunt.
How many years have you hunted in that same area?
I moved down there in 2014. Okay, and I started hunting in there in 15. I never hunted it until second year.
So, wow, you filmed it just your second year in that spot.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Huh. Well, talking about thick country and topography, Clay, you live in Northern Idaho.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I have concluded I'm not tough enough to hunt Northern Idaho.
I'm not either.
Yeah, nor am I. I learned that last year.
But it enticed me so much that I'm going to go bear hunting way, way up in Northern Idaho this spring. There's just something about the density of the timber. It almost has this rainforest effect in some places. And it's just nasty steep. And I don't know. I was over there not too far from where you live, further south, a couple weeks ago. And driving through, I'm like, this looks like a challenge. I'm not tough enough, but I'm going to come here and just prove to myself I'm not tough enough and good enough to hunt this country.
Well, it's you drive around and Idaho's such a diverse state anyway.
Isn't it, though?
But, even in just the northern part of the state, like you've got the Selway Bitterroot, the Selway corridor is just wide open breaklands, and then you move north a little bit and you get into some of that red cedar type habitat, some of that really dense closed canopy rainforest type stuff. And, actually a lot of that habitat that you're going to find in there up North Idaho it's the same plants communities that you'd find over on the coast.
Yeah.
It can be super dense.
Well, I can see as dense as it is, any weapon you carry probably doesn't need an effective range of more than about 10 yards from what I could gather.
If you're hunting in the timber, yeah, I mean, depending on what you're doing, like, there's other areas where you can get up a little bit higher elevation and get up kind of, you're not getting above timberline up there, but you get into some alpine meadows and things like that. So
okay, well, we'll see how it goes. I've not hunted bears in Idaho. We're putting the calendar together. We're calling it the Rocky Mountain Black Bear Trifecta. Mm-hmm. We're starting in Wyoming, coming back home to Montana, and then later we're going to way up North Idaho, where Montana, Idaho, and British Columbia come together. And I don't know, maybe it'll just be a long road trip, but
I've never spent any time into that country up there, but it'll be interesting to see what you run into. Yeah. I know the bear densities up there are just crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of grizz too. So I've hunted just east of there in the Yak.
Yeah.
And far west corner of Montana with the guys, Sean McAfee and Tim, the guys up at Linehan Outfitting. Mm-hmm. We've gotten into some big dark timber up there. I got in there I'm pretty sure I found a Sasquatch den. I mean, we got in this one part of the mountains, and Sean was like, I've never been in, like, I don't know quite where we are, but I've definitely never been here. And it was just big old trees, everything down and covered in green moss. And we just found this, like, just random piles of bones, all these different piles of bones. And I was like,
Sasquatch had been living there.
Sasquatch, he's been there for a while.
Did you report that?
Yeah. They were. I was like, it's either a wolf den or Sasquatch is living here.
I think there's a television show they might want to get you on.
Maybe that's what we'll title this episode.
That's
hunting for Sasquatch.
Yeah, hunting for Sasquatch. There's some neat country up there, and we saw. I did an April. I was out here for this, usually BHA, and then there's the Orvis rendezvous happened, same hotel. And I took a few days with Dad, and we went up and hunted bear with Sean right after the Orvis rendezvous. And he's a guide for their Orvis Lodge. And Sean lives his whole life in the Yak. And we saw 7 grizz in those 3 days.
Really?
And he's like, I've seen 17 grizzly bear here in my life. I've seen 7 with you. We're not going to hunt together anymore.
You know, Damon, you just convinced me that I'm not inviting you on a bear hunt. If you have a grizz magnet in your pocket.
Luckily, there was always good spotting scopes and stuff. But
I stumble into a few of them now and then, and I love the fact that they're there.
Yeah.
But I just don't really need to have an encounter with them.
Yeah, they add a new element to being out there, but like you said, it'll keep you on your game.
It's a wild place.
I lived down in Idaho Falls for a while, and you get up around Island Park and that stuff, and there's tons of grizzlies up there.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody gets mauled every year up there.
Yeah.
But I was sitting on an elk trail one time filming elk. And I'd been sitting there for about 10 minutes. I looked over, and there was a grizzly track about the size of a dinner plate right beside me in the mud. And I said, I'm gonna relocate here for...
Yeah, twice. Just over the border in Montana from Island Park down in near West Yellowstone. I archery elk hunt that country a lot. And twice I've had encounters with grizzlies. And fortunately, both times, they seem to be less interested in having an encounter with me than I was with them.
That's a good thing.
And they took off the other direction. But I tell you what, when you come around a corner and you've been calling elk, this one time I saw a group of elk in this scattered timber on just a little ridge up above me. And I'm calling, and they are paying no attention to me. I'm like, well, I should at least scare them off, as bad of a caller as I am. And they're looking kind of down and in front of where this trail curves and goes over this little knob. And all of a sudden, one of them barks, and they take off. But the wind was perfect. And usually they aren't going to bark unless they smell you. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, maybe there's another hunter or something. So I walk around this little patch of brush and start going up this hill. Just a little knoll that maybe rises 10, 12 feet. And when I get to the crest of that knoll, here is a grizzly bear walking down the same trail towards me. So I'm sure he heard my calling. Mm-hmm. And I looked at that. I'm like, this is it. I'm scrambling to get my bear spray out. And he looks at me and he just makes a woof and takes off down into the huckleberries. And when he's running through the brush, it's like a herd of elephants. You can see trees shaking and hear stuff busting and snapping. And I turned around and I trotted all the way back to the truck. I was going to be up there for 3 days. It was opening weekend. In Montana, it's always Labor Day weekend. By noon, I'm home. And my wife's like, what's the deal? I said, I just feel like maybe I should hang around the house this weekend. Oh, gosh. But what you were saying, Clay, it definitely adds a different element. You realize you're in wild country. Country wild enough to sustain grizzly bears is just badass country.
Right. Yeah. And they definitely behave different down here than like Alaska. Brown bears in Alaska, especially when there's salmon in the river, they just behave. They just really want to mind their own business, and they just kind of want to stay on their ground and eat their fish. But, the grizz down, and when you get in the interior and in the mountains, they definitely behave a lot different.
Yeah. Well, I hope I don't bump into one. I like to call black bears, but I never do it in grizzly country. Yeah. Because when a bear comes in, my experience has been when you call in a black bear, you pretty much have to shoot them.
They want to eat you.
They're coming in.
They're coming
in ready to eat. That trigger's been flipped.
Yeah, I don't call unless I see it's a bear that we want to shoot.
Yeah.
Then I'll call. If it's a bear that we just would want to get footage of, I'm not calling that black bear in because he's going to be on your lap and you're going to have to either club him or shoot him or let yourself be dinner. Yeah. But I wouldn't want that experience of a grizzly. I mean, to me, that calling in grizzly country just seems like asking for trouble.
Yeah, I had my first grizz encounter when I was just graduated college, and a buddy Neil and I decided to go. I spent a couple months just doing the whitewater competition circuit, paddling, and then I was like, I was really into climbing too, so I'm gonna go. Neil and I decided to do a month-long climbing trip in the West right after we graduated, so from Clemson, and so we headed to the Tetons, and we go up and we climb the Grand South and Middle Teton. It's 5 days up there. I had a great time. And then we're coming back down, and we're getting back down towards the valley, and we run into this couple, and they're like, oh, there's a mama and cub grizz on opposite sides of the trail about a half mile away down the trail. So we're like, okay, thank you. Yeah. I'm like, sweet, I'm getting my camera out.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I'd never seen a wild bear at this point, wild grizzly. And so we're going down the trail. I'm looking. Finally, we're kind of like on the spine, kind of like you described. The trail's along the spine, kind of, sparsely timbered on either side. And I look down the side, and I'm like, oh, there's the bear. And it was just kind of feeding, head down, mid-size, had the hump on the shoulder and kind of frosted back. And I was like, oh, yeah, snap. And then we're looking around for the cub on the other side. I'm like, I don't see any cub. I think we're fine. And then Neil's like, oh, I see a ears and no, like further down the hill. I see it's on this side. It's with this. Oh, okay.
So no, that puts you between them?
No, we're on the top, and now both bears are same side of the ridge. Okay. But we think we see the second bear, and then I'm like, oh yeah, there it is. And then that second bear like stands up, and it is a huge bear. and Neil says, that's no effing cub. and then it kind of walks forward and kind of shows itself. And then does like a woof and like a shoulder shrug. Yeah. Well, then the bear uphill turns downhill and looks at it and kind of does a little shrug back. And then all hell breaks loose. And the bear further down just starts charging straight up the hill at the bear towards it. Whoa. So it's big bear, mid-sized bear, us on ridge. He just starts breaking stuff, coming up. Bear, mid-sized bear, just turns and says, I'm out of here. Starts running straight for us. So we got all of our climbing gear. We start running down the trail. I'm laughing hysterically for some, infantile response to danger. And we're running like parallel with this bear's running parallel with us. And I'm like looking over my shoulder at this bear. And here there's a fallen tree up at like a 30-degree angle. Yeah. Well, he hits the base of that tree and like stops and does a juke move and like runs up the tree. When he stops, I stop. Neil runs into me. We fall down. It is like a Three Stooges skit. If I could just like scene back at this thing. Meanwhile, Big Bear just stops and like turns and walks away downhill. Yeah. bear up in the tree, like kind of starts swaying his head and pouting and like knocking bark off. I'm under him and going snap, 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 snap.
Holy crap!
Yeah, if
You're lucky you're not a statistic.
I know this is not the way you behave in bear country.
No, I'm like, I'm gonna have to put in a listener's comment. Please do not replicate Damon's behavior.
This is not how you're supposed to behave in bear country. But if you come in my house, I have like a collage photo thing, and that photo of that bear in the tree above us is one of those photos in that collage.
Wow!
And
you know how we were just talking about luck?
Yeah,
that 5% that day for you was really
that was
good
really
luck.
on our side. Yeah,
yeah.
Neil's like, he's like, why are you laughing? I'm seeing my life flashing before my eyes, and you're laughing. I don't know what else to do.
So that was one of the first.
That was my first grizz encounter.
Yeah, I think at least when I first moved out to Idaho, I grew up in Florida. I first moved to Idaho and hunted a lot in that island park country. Yeah. And I was just blissfully ignorant of I was doing stupid stuff, you know.
But not knowing it.
Not knowing it, yeah. I mean, I look back on some of the things that I did, and it's just like, whew, nah, I would not do that today. Yeah. I mean, you couldn't pay me enough.
Right.
I mean, I killed a huge black bear down there one time, and in the middle of some of that, really, you know, where you'd expect to find a bunch of grizzlies. Yeah. And I was still hunting with my flintlock, and I was walking up this kind of a shallow ridge with snowberry about 3 feet tall. Yeah. And got up to the top of this ridge, and there was these 3 big Doug fir that were probably, over 4 feet diameter. And I got to the first one, and there's claw marks going up and down this tree. Where the
first sign.
Yeah. So and all I can figure is, and there's a bed at the base, and so all I can figure is those black bears will bed down at the base of those big trees, and if they happen to get bumped by a grizzly, up they go.
Okay.
Well, I got to the second tree, and there's a pile of bear crap that, no exaggeration, is the size of a Coke can.
That's not a little one.
That's a pretty nice bear. And so I'm slipping along, and I take about 2 more steps, and this black bear stands up on his hind feet and looks me right in the eye from about, he was no more than 12 feet from me.
Oh, my goodness.
And I ended up shooting that bear, but I look back on that, and I'm like, you know what, I had bear spray on, but that could have so easily have been a grizzly.
Yeah.
I mean, and if it had been, who knows what would have happened, you know?
You'd have been a pile of those bones.
I'd have been part of that Coke can size crap.
Man. I've done some of the same things, Clay. When I first started hunting in Montana, I was, first of all, I was the worst elk hunter in the world, and I might still be, but I did some stupid things. Mm-hmm. I would chase elk down into places. For me, hunting in grizzly country is mostly about, you were saying earlier, Damon, about probabilities and risks and analysis. To me, I think part of the reason I don't have as many grizzly encounters, and now that I say this, I'll be a grizzly turd someday, but I just avoid places where they're likely to be. Now that I know more about where they're likely to be. When I first started hunting, I was strolling right through the places you shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. Like you were talking, Clay. A spot like that, it's like, that could have been a grizzly.
And sneaking through.
Yeah. And so I get a lot of emails from people who say, man, I'd love to come and hunt Montana, but I just don't want to elk hunt in grizzly country. And I get that. It's not for everybody. But it sure keeps the people away.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also, it's a sign of a good habitat. It's a good wild. If the bears are there, that's a good habitat structure, a good wildlife structure. It's certainly one of those factors.
But you don't have those in Tennessee.
We do not. We get black bear in Tennessee.
But if you look at the stats every year, there's more people killed by black bears than grizzly bears by a long number.
I know more people and friends in Alaska who are far more wary of black bears than they are of brown bears and grizzlies.
I wonder how much that has to do with, though, just the distribution of black. I mean, black bears are everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. And they're so habituated to humans.
They are habituated, and they strike me as a little more raccoonish in their behavior, like a little more curious, just a little more, you can see like a little more gears turning in their head almost, where grizz just seem to be, okay,
leave
I
me
don't want
alone.
to be here. Yeah, like I know what I am, and I know what you are, and I don't.
Right. Don't force me to come and beat you. Whereas black bears are like, eating that guy might be kind of fun.
Right. You almost see him. You can almost see that kind of. You're like, let me think about this one. Yeah.
Well, both you guys shoot traditional archery.
Mm-hmm.
Clay, you build your own bows, and you've got all those YouTube videos about it. I watch them. I watch them like, I'm sure I spend a lot of time just, my eyes are like, wow, what, you can do that? Man, I'd love to do that. And Damon, do you build your own, or do you just
I do
shoot
not.
'em?
It's super impressive what Clay does and building your own self bow. And I shoot a bear takedown.
Okay.
Is my bow. It's a 3-piece bow. It's awesome bow. That Fred Bear designed, I think, back in the late 60s.
Okay.
And love shooting it, but I'm certainly very impressed by.
Well, you're gonna do the self bow thing this year at the.
I am. I have an event. My next event coming up is early May. It's called the Tennessee Classic.
Yeah.
And it's just north of Nashville, and it's a great traditional focused club. Big self bow club though, and they have this guy Pappy has his property, and they do multiple different 3D shoots there, but the big one in the traditional archery world is called the Tennessee Classic, and it's the first weekend of May. People come week prior, and they have guys with staves there, and guys with the talent, and you get to build. They have a thing called a self-bow challenge, where you buy a stave, and while there, with their guidance, you get to build your own self-bow, get it set to the right draw weight and everything, and then shoot the course with it.
Holy
for score.
cow.
So I went last year and had an absolute ball. And it's amazing. It's a really cool event. At night, they have flint knapping classes and primitive fire building. And guys are up till 2 a.m. learning all this stuff, just kind of hanging out in this really cool workshop area. And everybody's camp. It's just a good time.
Yeah.
Just nice people, good time. And so yeah, I was like, you know what? This year I'm gonna go and I'll be camping with my Orions and bows, and I'm gonna make a self bow. So I'm gonna do it, and I'm super stoked.
Cool. So when you say self bow, Clay, I asked you this before we turned on the mic. To me, a self bow is just something someone made themselves, but you said no. It can be. There's people have different definitions of what a quote unquote self bow is.
Yeah. So what I tend to think of a self bow, and it doesn't matter. I mean, really. But what I tend to think of a self bow is an all wood unbacked bow, and so if it has, like for instance, rawhide or sinew backing, wouldn't technically be a self bow.
You can't use snake. Can't use rattlesnake, right?
I don't know, man. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
But I'm just curious from a terminology standpoint, because I hear it thrown around, and because I don't come from the traditional world, I just nod my head because I don't want to sound ignorant.
Well, most people who are not into wooden bows would call any natural material bow that you've made yourself a self bow.
Okay.
Guys that are more into it and building bows will make the distinction, but for me, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
I don't care what you call it.
So when you say a stave, is that just the riser part, or is that the entire bow part?
No, that's basically if you take a tree, split it, an 8-inch tree, split it into quarters. Each of those quarters would be a stave, and that's the blank, what you're building a bow out of.
Gotcha. Yeah, watching you do all that on your video, that is so cool. Everyone needs to go out to Clay's channel. He just said Google Clay Hayes.
Yeah.
Hayes.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. I've watched that video I don't know how many times, and every time I watch it, I'm like, all right.
We're going to have to get you a piece of wood to start whittling on.
Oh, no, I won't have any fingers left, Clay. I was watching the tools you're using. I'm like, man, an accountant can't be doing that. For me, just going out and trying to shoot traditional stuff would be fun. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's just, you reach a point in your life where it's like, okay, I did this, I've done that. What is still my aspiration that I haven't done? Mm-hmm. And because I came to archery late in life, growing up in my family, my dad was, anyone who doesn't shoot a 30-30 carbine is out there to just wound stuff. Mm-hmm. And so there was this negative connotation about archery in general. Yeah. And I would have, if I could roll back the hands of time I would take up archery when I was a teenager instead of when I was 31 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, but
it's a great way, you know, and I hunt with every weapon, but it is a great way of. It forces you to be a better hunter, for one. It forces you to focus on getting that much closer. In archery gear, you know, modern archery gear, and then traditional gets you that much closer.
Right.
So it forces you to think differently, move differently, act differently. But also, it's just such a great way to relax in the yard. You know, and you're not making a lot of noise, you're not spending a lot of money on ammo, just going out and having a couple targets and have a little backyard course. You know, a 15-minute break to just go out and shoot some arrows it's just relaxing, and I liken it to you know, the fly fishing versus you know, regular modern fishing tackle, conventional gear, and just feel all the power. You know, a compound bow does the work for you basically. You draw it back and it let off and it does the work. Well, all that energy that you're putting into that arrow, into that, you feel it release, and it's just a little more intimate kind of feel. And but you don't even have to hunt. I mean, you can have such a ball now doing these 3D courses and doing things like that just with the traditional bow. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Or just walking around the woods with some judo tips or
shooting stumps. Yeah. It's a ball.
It's one of the things that I love about archery is, you know, and I don't know if you guys get this feeling when you're in the woods and everything's serene and quiet. I hate to interrupt that, you know. I with a shotgun or something, you know, if I did a lot of squirrel hunting in Mississippi and in the South when I lived down there, and you know, when you get up early in the morning and the woods are waking up and the squirrels start to come out and the birds are singing, it's just, you know, you can hunt with a bow and not disturb that, you know. With that first crack of a 22 or a shotgun, you change the dynamic of what's happening out there.
Right.
But a bow just fits for me.
Well, I think about how growing up a rifle hunter, and I still do lots of rifle hunting. Trust me, I love it, and it's part of where I came from, and it certainly helps put lots more meals on my plate because of just the efficiency of it and how much better I am at it. And then in my 30s, when I moved to archery, all of a sudden I realized, okay, this is more about getting close, and this relationship. The relationship with the animal gets a lot tighter.
Absolutely.
The shorter the range of your weapon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it gives you the opportunity that you never had. If you're out there, you know, to shoot the first animal, unless you somehow limit yourself with a rifle, you know, to a trophy animal or whatever, you're going to fill your tag pretty quickly. And so you have relatively little opportunity to learn from that animal. And with a bow, especially with a stick bow, there's a lot of times when you have animals pretty close to you that you're able to observe their behavior, and you just don't have a shot, you know. And so you spend a lot of time watching animals and learning from them.
Yeah. And so I think about what a cool thing it was to go from rifle to archery. And then I look at you guys, I'm like, I wonder if that's the same step of intrigue or interaction, fulfillment, going from compound to traditional. And I'll be honest, at age 52, I don't think I'd ever get good enough or proficient enough that I could ever go hunt with a traditional bow.
Why do you say that?
Just because.
Can you shoot that? So what's your comfortable range on a broadside stationary elk with your compound?
40 yards.
Okay. Well, come spend some time with me and we'll get you comfortable at 20 yards with a stick bow.
But how many times have you had a 20-yard shot on an elk?
Lots.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's true.
I mean, you're going to...
Even closer.
Yeah.
I mean...
I have.
I mean, yeah.
Huh.
So what I tell folks when they start thinking about maybe making that switch from compound to traditional is, if you can be in a situation like that, say your effective range with a compound is 40 or 50 yards or whatever it is, and you know, with a stick bow it might be 15 or 20 or 25. If you can be in that situation and have a nice bull out there at 35 and let him walk and not regret having that less efficient weapon, then you're ready.
Okay.
If you get in that situation and you're kicking yourself for not having that more efficient weapon, you should probably be hunting with a compound.
Yeah.
You know, you don't.
Yeah, that's certainly my approach. And as somebody who uses every weapon, I look at it as, you know, have I done it before? Is it my first time hunting this animal? You know, do I really want it's all of those things. Is my freezer got space? Am I meat hunting, or am I really trying to just have fun hunts? Yeah. And that's kind of when as I progressed, you know, between where I hunt and what I'm hunting for, or who I'm hunting with, is how I'd make my decision.
Yeah.
It's very much a freezer function. It's very much have I done it before function.
Freezer function.
Yeah.
You know, when you say that, Damon, before we turned on the mics, Clay brought up about when his freezer starts getting empty.
Yeah.
They had their cook-off the other night here. They hosted a pretty high-dollar event here, and they asked me if I had anything to contribute to the cause. I don't know what the heck I was thinking, but I gave them my last 12 pounds of antelope steaks. And
that's generous.
That's as much as I love antelope. I'm now looking at my freezer. Okay, I got some whitetail over there. I got a little bit of elk left. And to this freezer function thing,
yeah.
I am grinding at the bit right now because I'm down to one bear roast left. And I'm starting to think I need to go rifle hunting somewhere early in the season.
There you go. Hashtag freezer function.
And I know some people think, oh, well, he does a TV show. He doesn't hunt for food. That is, it still is what is the basic element to why I am out there.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing with the trad bow that certainly it changes it. Anything that gives you a shot becomes massively successful. Yeah. It doesn't matter. You know, I had one of my just really coolest trad bow hunting experiences in Tennessee this fall. Again, I had there's a bow hunting zone in a state park not far from me, and it's a 1 week only bow only zone. So
1 week only.
1 week only bow only. So excellent age class, and you can get. If you just pretty large tracts of land you can get into and hike around and have a good hunt and not have people influence you. There's some they kill a few Pope and Youngs in there every year during this bow hunt. But so I go in there and this was a weekend after we filmed the Orion Chronicles. So I'd already tagged out on my $2. You get two buck tags in Tennessee, but this is a bonus zone. So if you kill one in the bow only zone in the park, it's a bonus deer.
It doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
Wow.
So
counts in the freezer though.
Counts in the freezer, and you can shoot does, and I think you can shoot. I don't know how many does you can. I never shoot enough to even come close to the limit in Tennessee, but it was 10. Now it's 6. It's a lot of does you can shoot. So I'm hiking this spine that I'd sat on. I'd climbed a tree there before, and deer used to often bed on the far side. So I'm going down it, and I jump a doe out of her bed, and there's a buck bedded with her, and she comes running 5 yards just past me. I could see the look on her face when she comes by me, oh God, I gotta run again and be chased some more because of you, you know. so she goes, she's running by me. Here goes the buck by me, and then I'm like, oh, they were bedded here. So I start looking around, and I find where she's peed, and I smell it. So I rub her pee all over me, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna sit here, it's the rut, and I smell like pee, and this is great, and I got my bow, and I got some antlers, and I'm just gonna sit down. So I sit down right where she was bedded, and it's big fallen old branch for cover, and I get a rattle. I'm like, let's just sit here and see what happens. And then 5 minutes, here comes his back. I can just see over the ridge. I can see his back coming. And he's coming down, his head down, that total buck on a mission.
Yeah.
And he goes right by me, and I'm grunting at him, trying to get him to stop, and he was 10 yards, perfect, and he goes right by me. I'm like, that buck's not stopping. I start running after the thing with a grunt in my mouth. I'm just running with my bow, stop. And then finally he stops, 20 yards, looks back at me, and I'm like, oh yeah. And then hit a little stick about this big around, about finger diameter. The arrow goes 90 degrees to the left, he goes to the right. I was like, oh, that was fun. Yeah. It was the first deer I've ever in my life chased, with a weapon and the bow in my hand, saying, stop. Please stop.
Well, Clay, you might talk me into this, but the question becomes, will I be proficient enough to kill grouse at 20 yards? Because when I go elk hunting, it's really a grouse hunt that might get interrupted by a bugle.
Absolutely.
I know how that is, but that's the great thing about grouse is you can. I got a grouse story for you.
I could do podcasts on grouse to no end. I want to hear a grouse story.
So we used to hunt for elk. We used to hunt up in North Idaho in that real thick stuff. Now we go down to the southern part of the state. But when we were hunting that thick stuff, there's spruce grouse up in there. If you get up in some of those lodgepole stands, and I was going through probably a 10-year-old, 15-year-old lodgepole stand, kind of high elevation, bare grass understory, and get in on this little group of spruce grouse, and of course they just like fly up into these 6 feet tall trees
and stay there.
And so, well, I didn't want to miss one and like lose my arrow, so I literally killed them with my bow. I just smacked the grouse off the branch with a bow.
Is that legal?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can kill them with a rock or whatever.
No, I have killed rough grouse with a rock. I've killed rough grouse with a slingshot. One time, there was one that was just behind our house where I grew up in Minnesota, and the only thing I had was my hunting knife. And I don't know how many times I threw that hunting knife at that grouse before I hit it. And it's not like the knife did anything.
Just the thump.
It was the thump broke its leg from the handle. And I don't know why it didn't want to fly. Maybe it had a broken wing, and that's why it couldn't fly. Yeah. But rough grouse can run really fast.
Oh, yeah.
And this one wouldn't run. And so I've killed them. I've hit them with a vehicle by accident. I've killed rough grouse or blue grouse or spruce grouse with just about every known weapon other than a traditional bow.
If you can't get closer than 20 yards from a grouse, we gotta work on those.
We gotta work on my stalking techniques. I know,
yeah.
But I know the people who watch our show. They see me get distracted by grouse, and they think I've got issues, and I do.
I don't ever pat. If I'm elk hunting and find a grouse, we're grouse hunting.
Yeah. Corey Jacobson was hunting with me, and Corey is such a great elk caller, and he'd call, and we'd be chasing a bugle. And he'd look back, and here I am sneaking through the brush, arrow nock, and there's a blue grouse out there walking in front of me, and I'm just waiting for him to give me a shot. And Corey's looking at me like, what the heck? We got a bugle going up there. I'm like, no, we're just what you said, Clay. No, this just turned into a grouse hunt. Just hold on,
I got
Corey.
2 chicken sandwiches walking right here in this bush.
And they taste so good.
Oh, man. That's... I don't want to distract us with too much grouse talk, though. We got lots of other things that maybe the audience will find more intriguing than Randy chasing chicken dinners through the woods. But but before I leave that, there is something about hunting grouse that makes me feel like I'm just this free young guy again, who just all the world's responsibilities, the complications that come with trying to outsmart an elk don't apply with grouse. Yeah. It's just like complete pleasure, that the chase, the pursuit, the no worries in the world. Like,
I think that goes with all small game hunting, though, right? I mean,
rabbit, squirrel.
It's not like there's so much opportunity, right, with rabbits or grouse or whatever. If you screw up, it's not the end of the world.
Exactly. No consequence.
And I just did back in December. I put out a little video where we were hunting late season whitetails on winter range, and I was stalking them with my bow. It's an archery only hunt, but that's the same way. It's like there's so many deer that if you mess one up, you just go to the next draw and there's 10 more.
That doesn't happen yet. That's been happening in Tennessee.
Whitetail winter range, Clay. You guys have that much of a migratory situation with your whitetails?
Yeah, there's one area up in Northern Idaho. There's a lot of that type of stuff, but there's one area in particular where you'll have deer coming from, 10, 15 miles maybe, and they'll all winter on the river breaks there. But if you catch it right, like this year, I've hunted it 3 or 4 times, and normally there's not much snow, and so it's fairly quiet. You know, you can slip around. You know, the real way, if you really wanted to kill a deer, the way to do it would be just to go hang a tree stand, and there's going to be deer coming by you. But it's so fun just to sneak around, and because you can use the topography to get fairly close to them, because it's all that break land with the little finger ridges, and you can get on one side and slip up and then come over and be pretty close to them. But it's so fun just to do that I can't bring myself to sit in a tree stand, you know. And I've like I said, I've hunted that 3 or 4 times. I've still yet to kill a deer, but I have so much fun just out there harassing them that I go back every year.
Well, when you said that, I always think of whitetails as being this, they live their whole life in a 30-acre patch kind of thing. And so when you said whitetail winter range, I'm like, wait a second, that makes me think of elk or mule deer. Yeah,
there's elk out there with them, but it's kind of a neat situation, and it's an awesome hunt.
Yeah. So we're and I don't want to mess up anybody's spots or anything, but this fall we're trying to get the calendar. So I talk about our Rocky Mountain Black Bear Trifecta. We're also trying to do the Rocky Mountain Whitetail Trifecta. Last year, we almost got it. We shot a whitetail in Montana. We dropped over the border to Wyoming and shot a whitetail in Wyoming. The calendar just didn't work to make it to Idaho, but Idaho is getting to the point where it's got whitetails from British Columbia almost all the way down to Utah now.
Oh, there's whitetails in the desert down in southeast Idaho. Yeah. I mean, I haven't been up here. I moved to Idaho in 2007, and so I don't have a long-term perspective. But just in the time that I've been here, you're seeing whitetails in places that you've never seen them before. But in North Idaho, I mean, there's mule deer and whitetail all intermixed together. But it's great whitetail hunting. And like from my house, I can be in really good whitetail hunting in literally just walk from my house and down to the canyon. There you go.
Really? Well, I think when people see how we hunted these whitetails in Montana and Wyoming, a lot of folks from maybe your part of the world, Damon, or the Midwest are going to say, you mean I can come out there the last half of November and those bucks are still rutting that hard and there's public land where I can hunt them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, lots of it. And in Wyoming, it was a leftover tag. We got it on a second choice, and you could have got it on a third choice even. And this year, we're going to do the same thing. I know we'll get those 2 states on the docket. It's just, are we going to get to Idaho? It seems like I always have some schedule conflict that doesn't allow me to get to Idaho.
You're going to have to readjust your priorities, man.
Hashtag freezer function.
Yeah, well, freezer function. I'm going big for freezer function in Idaho this year. I just sent in my moose application.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
So for many years, I think 12 years in a row, I applied for moose here in Idaho. And you guys have great odds for moose in Idaho relative to what other states are. But you think I could draw a moose tag? Not for my life. So then I switched over. I think the last 4 or 5 years, because you guys have the deal where you can apply for moose or sheep or goat. But if you apply for one of those 3, you can only apply for one of them. Yep. And if you apply for one of those 3, you can't apply for deer, elk, and antelope.
Yep.
So I switched over to doing the deer, elk, and antelope thing. Well, that turned out to kind of be a dud also. I didn't.
We've got you on the blacklist, Randy.
I know. I have done something to the folks in Boise who say, that Newberg guy, we don't want him here. His money's no good around here.
Yeah, I think I'm going to put in for a moose as well.
Yeah, but your moose season opens August 30th. And I'm looking at my calendar. I'm like, you know what? That could really solve my freezer concerns, because I have 3 freezers. And my wife has one that, you keep your dead stuff over there, other than her walleyes. She's got one freezer that, all right, walleyes, perch.
She's okay
crappie.
With that.
She's good with that.
So you have a freezer function trifecta.
I do.
That's what you have.
And then I've got one freezer that has like beaver hides and beaver carcasses and beaver casters and muskrat hides, but that's my overflow freezer for all my wild game that I take. but if I could draw an Idaho moose tag, that would solve my freezer concerns early in the season.
Yeah, that sets you up pretty good. Then you could start shooting a stick bow. Don't have to worry about it.
Wait, hey man, all right. Here's the deal. You pull some strings over there in Idaho, and you get me that moose tag, and I'll walk around the rest of the year with that stick bow in my hand.
I'll see what I can do.
Because I could just as soon walk around with a briefcase in my hand and have just as much chance of shooting something.
You gotta have confidence, man.
Well, I think that comes from practice.
Yeah, practice, yeah.
Compared to compound shooters, when I shoot, I got a range in my yard. I go and shoot a few arrows in the morning before I drink my coffee, because it seems like that jolt of coffee really messes up my shooting, both with a rifle and with a bow. And then over lunch, I might go shoot 3 to 5 arrows, and then I'll do the same thing in the evening. Do you got to practice more than that with a stick bow?
I think I think you tend to, just because and I hunted with a compound when I first got into archery hunting, and eventually switched to the stick bow. But for me, it's just you enjoy it more. You know, you take a couple. It's not like you gotta shoot at a bag target. You know, when I was hunting with a compound, you know, I'd never go stump shooting. You know, you'd never see me walking around with judo tips shooting at pine cones. Yeah. Because you'd either blow up an arrow or lose an arrow or something like that. But with a stick bow, I mean, I've got 2 boys that are 8 and 5, and they've both got bows, and we just walk around through the field shooting, you know, pine cones or sticks or whatever. You know, you say, you see that rabbit sitting in the brush there, and you just tuft of grass or something, and just see who can get closest to it, and just walk through the woods doing that stuff. It's a lot of fun, and it's great practice.
Yeah, and they don't chew up your targets at all. Like, you know, you can shoot field tips and like Reinhardt targets for them all day long. You know, the target will last your whole lifetime, and they're not hard to pull your arrows out. It's not like that frustration of I gotta dig this compound arrow out of here. And so it's definitely just a little more kind of relaxing experience, I'd say.
Well,
and they're such a pleasure to carry. I mean,
look at it.
So light.
Yeah. Because people will see me when we're going hiking in on long hikes. I've got my bow strapped to the back of my backpack, and a lot of people are like, "You dare do that with your bow?" Well, if my bow can't withstand it being strapped to the back of my pack, then that bow wasn't made for the stuff that I put it through.
Yeah.
But watching you guys with those light little, every time I go and pick up a stick bow, I'm like, "Ooh, this is light." I'm liking this, and I think there's a huge amount of intrigue to it. I don't think I'm the only person intrigued by traditional archery. We filmed an episode with my buddy Scott Jones in Reno, Nevada, and Scott drew a Nevada mule deer tag, velvet bucks, and we went and filmed that, and we'd get so close, and Scott's like, "No, I need another 5 yards, or I need another 10 yards," and that video when it was on TV, was one of our highest viewed episodes of that season, and now that it's out on YouTube,
and that was with a stick bow. I'm going to check that out.
Scott Jones. He uses a longbow, and he's the one who really got me thinking down this path, because he's shot many elk with it. Yeah. He's shot some nice deer with it. He's a Nebraska farm boy who lives out west now, and he's so patient. He's not
definitely
in a big hurry.
Patience.
And so when I watch Scott hunt, he just looks so relaxed. Mm-hmm. It's a different experience than sometimes when I watch myself or watch others with compound bows or with rifles. And we're talking about this, and I hope no one's getting the impression that I'm judgmental about one or the other. I'm just intrigued because I've not done it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you guys have, so
I say so, and I'm sure you experience this. So when you're in the hunting industry, like we make products for the hunting industry. We're involved in hunting TV and marketing, and there's certainly a pressure to succeed. Right? There's certainly pressure. There's just always, you have all this, everybody's doing all this. I feel like I have to do this too, and self-imposed or not. Sometimes it can be hard to escape it. And for me personally, going on a hunt with my traditional bow, just totally takes any pressure out of it. It totally is like, if it's gonna work, it's gonna work. If it's not, it's not. It's just what it is. And it totally, like, for me personally, it's almost an escape from work and the industry and all of that kind of stuff that you see. It is just totally, I can relax and just have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're going to pressure yourself to, kill an animal, I don't know, it'd be hard for me to understand how you could really enjoy yourself, being out there. But I'm the same way as Damon. It's, we're lucky in Idaho that I can hunt, like I said before, I do probably 90% of my hunting with a self bow. Yeah. But in Idaho, I get to spend a lot of time in the woods. I get to hunt a lot. And if I don't kill an animal during archery season, oftentimes, depending on, say, the elk tag that I get, I've got an opportunity to go on a late season hunt with a muzzleloader.
Okay.
And which is what happened this year. I mean, I've killed an elk the last 2 years with my bow, but I didn't this last season. So we did a late season muzzleloader hunt, and I was able to kill a cow. But my family eats wild game. I mean, just like you guys, that's what we don't buy meat at all. And so it's very important for me to put something in the freezer. But if I were faced with the choice, if I had to say, okay, you have 1 week to put an elk in the freezer, and you can hunt with a rifle or you can hunt with a bow, given the importance of wild game in my freezer, that'd be a tough choice for me. I don't know.
Function.
Yeah, I don't know that I could say, okay, I'm going to limit myself to a self bow now, because a week. Unless it was just like elk behind every tree, I don't know. It
impacts your whole year. I mean,
if I had the opportunity to go shoot, 3 or 4 whitetails, I'd probably stick with a bow. But who knows?
And that's where I always try to put myself in the shoes of listeners and viewers who aren't as fortunate as me, where they hunt 4 months out of the year.
Yeah,
and so I don't have that pressure of, hey, the freezer's empty, or I've only got 3 days because work told me I got to work my brains out in October or November, so I'm only going to have 3 days.
Yeah,
that's a completely different dynamic, but that's reality.
It's the reality.
For
Absolutely.
So many
it's reality
people.
For me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
and I try in our TV show and in our other stuff we do to at least be. I can't replicate that reality, but at least be cognizant that their reality is different than what I'm allowed to do. And so I don't judge what weapon anyone picks up, or their motive for why they pick that up, or their motive for what they shoot or don't shoot.
Well,
absolutely.
I mean that brings up a great point, though. It's like I was talking to somebody the other day about motivations to be hunting, and even just for me, my motivation changes for different hunts that I go on. I was telling you about, sometimes we have in Idaho, we have tags called depredation tags. If we have, elk or whitetailers or something that are coming into an ag field and damaging the crops, oftentimes they'll issue early tags. And when I get one of those, this is, mid to late August. My freezer's getting kind of empty at that time. I'll take it. I'll go out with a rifle. I'll shoot the first doe I see. Yeah. But when I do that, I am motivated by I am out there to kill a deer in the most efficient way possible and get that deer in my freezer.
That's a great observation, Clay, because I think we as hunters, either it's our tendency, or when you circle the wagons because you feel like you're being attacked, you feel like you got to have one motive that the rest of the world's going to agree with. And what you just pointed out there is, guess what? We have multiple motives, not just among this person has a different motive than this person, but person one might have 4 different motives, and it just depends on
in one season
what they're doing. And that's I'm glad you brought that up, because I want people to be relaxed about their motives for hunting. It doesn't matter to me what someone's motive is.
Yeah,
So,
as long as it's good and it's ethical and everything else,
Yeah,
do it your own way. Don't
be comfortable with your own motive.
I think there's a lot of folks, I think, that are hunting that don't really think about what their motives are. And I think we'd all be better off, or just to have a better understanding of why we're out there. I think it's easy for folks to get caught up in what they see somebody else doing or what they think that they're expected to do.
Especially in this
and
day
they
and
don't
age.
ever stop to question, like, why am I doing this way?
Right.
You know, but that's something that I've thought a lot about. Like, why do I hunt the way that I do? And like I said, even in different parts of the season.
Mm-hmm. How old are you, Clay?
I'm 36.
Damon, how old are you?
just turn 40.
Gosh, I am running with I am so old. I've not had anyone on this podcast my age or older. I need to quit this stuff. But I have found that getting into that motive thing, or I don't know if motive's the right word, but just what I want out of hunting. The older I get, the easier it is to, and I say my give a shit filter really, I've lost it. And by that, I mean, I don't care why other people hunt, and I don't care how they judge why I hunt. And it's so easy now to just say, you know what, that's what I'm going to go do.
Yeah.
And maybe a story will come of it, maybe it won't, but I'm in the woods. I'm doing something I love to do. And even growing up in the woods since I was 4 years old, I mean, I've always been one of those kids who found a patch of woods, and I'd go build a little fire. I'd make hobo dinner. So the wild place has always drawn me. And even now, at age 52, every day I'm out there, I see something that just, it grabs my attention, and it's like, man, I've never seen that before.
Right.
I bet you I've seen it, but I probably wasn't observing it or taking the time to observe it. Mm-hmm. And just those little things now, and when I hunt, add so much more pleasure to it, because I've went through that phase where I feel no pressure of any way, shape, or form, other than I got to get some more antelope in my freezer. Yeah, I'm going antelope hunting, and I'm not giving it to anybody. I got some antelope burger left, but
I got my first antelope dish this fall, and Ashley's, my wife, says, you know, it's top of her list. She put it behind caribou as favorite meat. Good stuff.
I am so thankful that there's this myth out there that antelope are stinky, rotten, smelly.
Yeah, I had heard that, and I think they're just hunted a lot in hot weather, and people aren't getting them taken care of cold fast. And
Yeah. And a shameless plug for Orion coolers. If you have an Orion cooler,
you can get truck already full of ice.
And we've done a video. Yeah. We did it when I was in New Mexico last year. It was 70-some degrees when I shot that antelope. We had the hide off it immediately. We had just one block of ice. We hung it for a little while after we got the hide off and quartered it, hung it in game bags, because just the wind will drop that
dry
ambient.
Air.
That'll drop that ambient temperature so fast, even if it's warm out.
Right.
Threw that thing in the cooler, put a block of ice on it, and it was good for, I don't know. We were out there filming for another 2 or 3 days before I got it somewhere, and it was fine.
Excellent.
And that's to antelope, though. If I would have left that thing skin on in the back of my truck while I'm screwing around out there for even a day, I tell people, well, if you take the finest young beef heifer and you shoot it, you drag it through the mud, you leave the hide on, you throw it in the back of your truck in that hot truck bed, and you drive up and down Main Street for a few hours, and then stop in at the bar to brag about that heifer calf you got in the back of your pickup truck. That's not going to taste very good.
It's going to be a little
either.
funky also.
Yeah. That's exactly what's going on with those antelope. But I mean, I've seen the same thing. That's some good meat.
Yeah. So Backcountry College, Clay, that's a YouTube series that you're teaching backcountry skills to anyone who wants to drop in on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, so most of the Backcountry College videos are actually hosted on the BHA YouTube channel. I've got a few on mine, but they're just duplicates of what's on the BHA's channel.
Okay.
But yeah, well, like I said, we're covering everything from, just all sorts of stuff. I did one where I did some fly fishing, caught a trout, and then went and found some wild edibles and made a shore lunch right there on the bank of the river. I've done one of the cooler ones that I've done is I use some small carabiners to rig up a block and tackle for lifting a heavy pack. So if you're like hanging a pack in bear country or something like that, just a whole suite of different, just whatever I think people will be interested in outdoor skills, I'll make a video on and throw it up there.
Yeah. If I could make a suggestion, do a lot more of those.
Yeah.
Because I like watching them. But anytime I do a little thing like that on my YouTube channel, especially if it has a specialized piece of equipment, it's crazy how many people watch that stuff.
Yeah, the how-to videos, if they're well done and it covers skills that are applicable to people, that's what's going to get the views.
Yeah. And I take it for granted, and you guys probably do also because you've been hunting a long time, but I've got a huge audience that's just coming to hunting in the last 4 to 5 years, and they're just soaking up knowledge and searching, thirsting for it.
Absolutely.
And I have the problem of being old and gray and having the tendency to think that everyone has 40 years of experience hunting like I do. And you really, when you start talking to, especially I'll use the term adult onset hunter, say someone who's 35 who's coming to hunting, and you look at what their learning curve is to get there, and it's like, wow, I learned that stuff sitting around the campfire when I was 6 years old because my dad and grandpa or my dad and uncles were talking about it. Well, that's a huge benefit I had that somehow I've got to find a way to impart that to the 35-year-old who's trying to do the crash course to learn what someone else has learned in the 30 years.
Over the span of their life,
Yeah. So I'm now really focused, and that's a lot of the stuff that we're doing is, it might seem basic, it might seem simple, but it's to try lower hurdles, whether it's about applications, whether it's about logistics, how-tos, tactics.
I've gotten a lot of questions on, doing the backpack hunt. And I did an article on backpack hunting in Tennessee a couple of years ago and started getting this feedback then. It's just continued. I don't even know where to, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. How do I even, how you hunt with a backpack, where do I even start? And so I always suggest to people, that a lot of people who have never camped, they've never cooked over a fire, so I always suggest, I kind of have a progression. I'm like, if you want to get into backcountry hunting, or just go car camping with your family at a state park. Just go spend a night out, have a good time, have a pleasurable experience. Facilities are there, don't have to worry about too much. Then go on a backpack trip somewhere like the Appalachian Trail where there's huts to stay in. You'll learn what you need to carry, what you don't need to carry in your pack. You don't have to really worry about navigational skills. It's a very well-defined trail, easy in and out points, and then go on an off-trail backpack somewhere where you do have to do some navigation. You do have to figure out, okay, I got to be more comfortable where there's not other people around and everything else. And then start thinking, okay, now I got to allocate 10 more pounds off my pack for a weapon. And then I got to figure out, okay, I realize, hey, if I get something down, I have to get it out. So helping people, give them somewhat of a progression, because people don't know where to begin. I'm like, just go to a state park and camp with your family. Have a good time.
I'm surprised in today's world how many young kids don't get to go and camp. I live in Bozeman, Montana. The number of young kids who don't know how to start a fire, how to even know what north, south, east, and west means. I'm like, whoa, wait a second, people. We got to get these kids out in the woods. We got to let them pee on the fire.
Right. Absolutely.
It's all stuff that I'm sure we all probably took for granted growing up.
But I have a lot of friends in the military. Used to work in the defense industry. A lot of friends in the military, and some of those guys, get into really elite training level. And as guys are filtering out, it's the guys who have never camped before. They get all the way to that level. They've never spent the night out, and they freak out. Even at that level, and it just goes to show, if you're not, we just see it as, everybody's camped, everybody's lives their summers out in the woods chasing turtles, whatever, swimming in ponds and doing what they're doing. But not everybody does these days. And nothing wrong with that. It's just, you know, people are certainly looking for information. There's a lot of good information out there, a lot of bad information out there. Certainly, you know, trying to put out good information, helping remove those hurdles is a great way to describe it, helping motivate people to try something new, have a little adventure of their own. And it's all subjective. Adventure is an adventure. Anything new is an adventure, right?
There's so much stuff online these days. I mean, it doesn't matter what question you have about what topic, you can find good information. But that, you know, I don't care how many YouTube videos you watch on navigation. Right. You got to get out there and fiddle with a compass and look at a topo map and orient things. I mean, you've got to get out there and practice
and not
those
use
skills.
Your phone.
Not use your. Oh my God.
No, I think you're right, Clay. A lot there's the benefit of having all that information available that people,
it's a base. It gives you that. It gives you that fundamental understanding. But you got to get out there, because when you get out there, things are not going to work the way that they work for the dude on the video. You know, things are going to happen.
You can't kill an animal in front of, on your computer or couch. You can't catch a fish on your computer or couch, and you can't learn how to walk through the woods from your couch.
I wanted to just touch on that point. You're talking about don't use your phone. I can't tell you how many times I've been walking around with people in the woods. They have a GPS and they're watching they use that little marker on the GPS to tell where they're going or whatever, and then they are completely out of context when they pull their face off that screen. It's like they don't have that little marker to tell them where they are in relation to whatever topographic feature, and they're completely lost. I mean, you've got to, when you're walking in the woods, especially in the timber like in North Idaho, you got to pay attention to where you're at, and not just on a screen.
But those are basic things we take for granted. Okay, I walked in here. Guess what? I was going up the drainage because the creek down to my left was going downstream the whole time. Well, if I get turned around, guess what? I turn around and I just follow the direction of the creek because I was going against. It's just basic things like that. Or, you know, when I walked in here, the sun was on my right shoulder the whole time. So I must have been, you know, this time of day, I was probably heading east. Well, if I want to get back, I put the sun on my left shoulder. And but we take that for granted because we were taught that when we were 8 years old. I'm hopeful that our YouTube channel gives us the opportunity to do some of that stuff that gets people out there.
We're trying to do similar things. My top two like videos, just on my personal one, where, you know, I explained the kayak bow fishing setup, and then I go bow fish, and that, you know, just got a ton of people, all these questions about, how'd you do this, how'd you rig that, they see that. And then I did a backcountry fly fishing overnight trip in the Smokies, and then at the end of it, this is why I chose what I chose, here's the gear that I used. And people are like, hey, where do I get this? They're looking for it, they want to know, they want to know how to do. And it's good to see that the interest is there. It's great to see people wanting to get out and have some healthy adventures.
Yeah, well, I just hope they go do it, even if it's in their backyard. I'm always impressed at the amount of opportunity or amount of accessibility there can be if someone puts their mind to finding it. I was telling you before we turned on the radio, and Joe, who edits my podcast, lives in Brooklyn, New York. And he's an avid whitetail hunter. And when he and I talk or swap back and forth, he gives me his hunting report in the fall. And I'm like, who would think that a guy in Brooklyn, New York could find all kinds of hunting opportunity?
And close by.
And close by.
And he has. And to me, that's just so remarkable. So my thought is, all right, just because you live in Cincinnati or you live in Dallas or whatever, and I know for younger people where mobility and getting to places is a little harder, but once you become mobile transportation-wise, there is places to go, and it might just be trying to catch minnows in a creek, or it might be trying to snare a rabbit, or whatever it might be. You're going to learn so much in those little basic things.
Yeah, in my presentation here, that was a lot of the focus was, backcountry is a subjective term, right? Mm-hmm. If you've never been out of your backyard, the unbuilt 2 lots behind you, that's your backcountry when you're 6. You know what I mean? Like, I got in there. I crossed the creek. That's like, I was across the creek.
No, that's a great observation, Damon.
And it is. It's a very, so like, when in the West, yes, there are huge tracts. Mm-hmm. You think of the Frank Church, some of the big wilderness areas, but there's no roads, there's no people, huge areas. In the East, you don't really have those kind of totally undeveloped, very, very large, almost state-sized compared to some eastern states kind of areas. But you get up in the national forest that runs the whole spine of the Appalachians, the Adirondacks, all these different state forests and state parks, wildlife management areas that exist in the East. You hear a lot of people in the East, traditional hunt, I would say the core hunting kind of culture is, for whitetail. Let's say it's, you have a property or a lease and it's managed and there's planted fields and you go and hunt, and then let's say somebody family owns land and then somebody sells it or they lose their lease. I don't have anywhere to hunt anymore, so I don't hunt anymore.
Yeah.
Because I don't have anywhere to hunt.
Right.
But there's all these little areas, these little pockets of public land or that you can actually hunt, and you can call it backcountry or you can call it whatever you want. And I'm using, you can't see it on the audience, but quotes with my fingers, but it's backcountry to you because people aren't in it.
Yeah, right.
And when I was a kid, I was just always, we had my friend Jason Pogue in South Carolina. As a military brat, we always, no matter where we lived, even like in Germany, 3rd grade, my parents would stay there. I'd fly to South Carolina for the summer, and at my grandparents' house in Rock Hill. And like there were a number of summers, Jason and I every morning got on the phone. What pond are we going to? We're going to go over so-and-so's pond. And we get on our 4-wheelers, and we had trails crossing the whole county, and we'd go fish that pond. And next day, what pond are we going to? And that was our summer. I mean, we went to each pond. That's all we did. And now I go back there, and I can't do those trails anymore. There's houses built up. There's different things. So, and I look at that. Well, will that stop me from exploring? No, you got to find the different spots and getting around. And certainly, I always encourage people. Backcountry's it's a subjective term. It's up to you to decide what's new and where you want to go and what you want to do.
I'm glad you said that because I live in a place of Montana with so much backcountry. Clay, you live in a place next to one of the biggest wilderness areas isn't the Frank Church the biggest wilderness area in the lower 48?
I don't know. The Frank Church and the Selway Bitterroot are divided by the Magruder corridor. Okay. I don't know how that.
We have an abundance of what is considered classic backcountry. Yeah. So that is what starts forming my mindset. But what you said, Damon, is so true.
Yeah, it's especially when it's a subjective term. Backcountry to me is just where people aren't. It's where wildlife is doing its thing and where people aren't.
There's reminds me of when I was a kid growing up. I grew up in Northwest Florida and was very, very fortunate in the way that I grew up. I grew up on a small ranch down there. But even then, I mean, it's the country back there is tight. I mean, I used to think that going to town 5 miles away, I thought that was a long trip, Yeah. Now I go to the grocery store and I'm driving for an hour. I could have drove halfway through Alabama by the time I got to town. But anyway, when I was a kid, I used to run a trap line. I'd walk from my house, and I could measure out the circuit that I would walk, but I'd walk it every morning. It was probably less than a mile. But I'd walk through our pasture, I'd hit the creek, I'd walk down the creek, go through the cedar swamps, and then back to the house. And I would get up early in the morning. And I'm sure you guys have read the San County Almanac by Aldo Leupold.
For sure, yeah.
There's a great quote in there, and I can't remember what the quote is exactly, but he's talking about how he gets up early in the morning and walks, and he feels like he has title to everything he can walk across as long as he does it before the tax collector gets up. And it's, and that's like when I was a kid in Florida. I mean, I'd get up early and there was nobody awake. There was no traffic. The dogs were all asleep, and it was like, I mean, I could have been Daniel Boone on the American frontier.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And I know that sounds nostalgic, and you look back at that, and it probably is to some degree. But I had what they called it the Indian Trail, right out my back door, that took you along the Big Fork River to wherever wild place in my mind I wanted to go, and that was so formative to me. I killed so many grouse on that trail. I trapped weasels. I trapped mink. Every once in a while, I'd find a beaver. I was down there. My mom knew if she couldn't find me,
that's where you were.
I was somewhere down along the Indian Trail.
Yeah.
And now I think about how many things I learned. I'd sneak into the little creeks and I'd roll rocks over, and there's crawdad under every rock.
Sure.
Guess what? I put that live crawdad on my hook. I'm going to catch a smallmouth bass every time it drifts behind the big rock over there.
Yep.
And I'd drag that smallmouth bass up to the house, and I know some listeners are like, "Oh no, he killed a smallmouth bass." Or if it was a walleye or a pike, that thing was coming to the house with me.
Absolutely.
That's big stuff when you're a little kid.
Yeah, I was notorious. If we were at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, in second grade, and there was this creek near our barracks, and church didn't matter, church closed, I'm in that creek. Like when I walked to school, through the creek, like in the creek. I had and it ended up, very distinctly recall this, walking down the main cul-de-sac, 2 snapping turtles, one in each hand by the tail. One of these just kept thinking I'm just the champion. I'm like, look at these turtles, I'm bringing them home. And I remember my parents out in the driveway saying, put those things down. And I ended up with 49 snakes in my room.
Okay. So
that
folks,
I caught.
Damon has a snake issue that I don't understand, and Clay and Damon went on I think you guys were bear hunting. I was watching following some of your Facebook posts. Was it a bear hunt?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even bear hunting, Damon is on a snake search, and not because you don't like snakes, but because you like snakes.
I like snakes. Yeah, I do. And
crazy.
On the way in, this was a great. That hunt was Clay and I and 2 brothers, Teague and Thane, and we're going in, and Clay had his goats, and Thane and I were in the back just kind of talking, and the goats and everybody just walked past, and then right there on the trail, right where they had just, all those hooves, all those feet had just passed, was a rubber boa.
What's a rubber boa?
It's one of the 2 species of boa that exists in North America. There's a rosy boa and a rubber boa, totally harmless constrictors. And it looks like a piece of rubber. It's kind of a grayish color. And they live in kind of Pacific Northwest and kind of temperate climates. And never found a wild one. I was ecstatic. I was like, this whole hunt, I don't care what happens. This is day 1. We got a whole week. I have found a wild rubber boa, and I am good. And then to the course and then we get to where we're gonna go set up camp, and kind of all dispersed or out during the hike in, and then we all get together, and all the other 3 guys had seen rattlesnakes. And I hadn't seen one.
Bear hunting, you saw rattlesnakes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they had all seen Northern Pacific rattlers, and I hadn't seen one, and I was mad. I was like, man, I was looking, and how did you guys see me walk the same trail, and I didn't see one, and I was upset. And then, through the course of the week, eventually, T got a bear, which was really cool. Got it with was it a self bow?
It was a glass bow.
Glass bow, yeah. And we had that in camp, and I went up into this deep dark creek, like you're talking about, some of that deep dark country. Yeah. And I'm standing there, and I found a pile of bear scat, like a wheelbarrow had been dumped, and I'm just like in there alone with my recurve, saying to myself, I'm not so sure I should be in here. And I kind of crossed out onto this open face and was traversing this open face and came across nearly stepped on a few Northern Pacific rattlers, and I was like, okay, appetizers, here we go. So use my broadhead to dispatch them and put them in game bags, and brought them back to camp. We skinned them, and we cooked them in bear fat. And there was the appetizer with bear tenderloin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bear tenderloin with rattlesnake app. Oh, buddy.
I am embarrassed to say I did not know there was such a thing as a Northern Pacific rattler.
Yes.
Are they similar to...
They look like a prairie rattler.
Okay.
Yeah.
In color and size, both?
Yeah,
Because our prairie
little
rattlers in Montana aren't that big.
Yeah, these were all, I'd say, upper 30s, maybe low 40 inches. Good contrast, kind of a yellowish, goldish color with kind of darker brown.
Don't you have some
grayish.
pictures or?
I did, yeah. They're all on the Orion blog. If you go to the Orion Chronicles, Orion blog site on the website.
So Orion.com.
Orion.com.
Click on Orion Chronicles.
Yeah, click there on the Chronicles under team, or the stories. There's a scroll thing at the bottom of the page where you can see stories, and it's four-part bear hunt series story that I wrote with photos, and yeah, you'll see me skinning them and a pot with a bunch of pieces of rattlesnake next to a bunch of pieces of bear, and
Really?
and then me smiling with a cooked piece before we dug into it.
So,
And they didn't kick me out of camp.
Really?
No, they didn't even kick me out of camp.
What,
They just kind of
what
laughed
do you
at me.
think of this, Clay? If he came back to my camp with a bag full of rattlesnakes, I don't know what I'd do.
I didn't find that strange at all.
Really?
No. So this is the first hunt that Damon and I had been on, and so we didn't. I mean, I don't plan things. I just kind of do. I just kind of go with the flow and figure things out as I go. And so Damon calls me out and says, "What do I need?" and this and that. And I'm like,
I'm a planner. I am a planner.
I'm like, yeah. I don't know, bring your sleeping bag and whatever. I was like, all right, I'll have all the cooking stuff. I'll take care of all the food. You ain't got to worry about that. And so Damon shows up, and we are like 8 miles in, and it comes time for dinner, and he's like, so where's the dishes? Where's the bowls? I was like, you didn't bring a cup? You didn't bring a bowl?
Yeah. And I was like, you said you'd have all the cooking stuff.
Well, I kind of distinguish cooking from eating. Serving.
Yeah.
And so, I think he ended up whittling a plate out of a log.
I got an awesome backcountry lesson from Clay on I made my own fork, which was really, that should be one of your YouTube videos, but it's not already. It's how to make your own backcountry cutlery. I still had a knife.
Yeah.
I always have a knife.
Yeah.
So I had the knife taken care of, but I needed a fork. So I carved a nice, what was that, poplar? What was that wood?
I think it was grand fir that we ended up using.
Yeah.
Or I can't remember. It's been a while.
Yeah. So anyway, carved myself a wonderful fork. You'll see it on that blog post. You'll see my fork. And then Clay had this amazing saw, which I ended up buying, one of those Segway saws. Those things were amazing.
Yeah, silky.
Silky saws, yeah.
Tell me what that is.
Silky saws come out of Japan, but they are amazing. And I don't have any affiliation
How do you
with them.
spell it? Silke or something?
Silky, I think.
I think it's Y.
And it's like the Segway, Sugui, like 420 or 460 or something model.
But they are, you got to be careful with them because they are razor blades.
Yeah.
Really?
But I
Yes.
I used that saw and I cut, what was that? A 16-inch tree?
Yeah.
So I just cut a section out of that tree and made my own little wooden dinner plate right there at the campsite.
Did a little burn with the coals.
Coal burn on one
Yeah.
side. So I had I cut it decently thick. So I had a plate on one side and then a burned out bowl on the other.
Yeah.
So then that solved my backcountry.
See there, adapt and overcome.
Yeah. So definitely had to adapt. But that was,
You need to do a video on that.
We should. Yeah.
Are you guys going hunting again this year?
We are in June.
I suspect he'll maybe know what to expect this.
Yeah, I'll a little better idea.
He'll be bringing
a little
more.
better idea. I'll probably will have a plate. I'll probably will have a spoon and a fork. But
We survived though.
We did. We had a good time, and we ate well. I mean, we got that bear really the first day.
Oh, really?
It was early, yeah.
It was early, and then
And how many more days did you stay in there?
I think we were there for 3. It was like we packed in. First day, he got it late that night. So the next day we went up and all together found it and packed it down. And then I hunted and then went back up the next day. So it was 5 days total, in and out all together.
Because some people listening are going to say, well, how'd you keep the meat from spoiling? How'd you keep the hide from slipping? All that stuff.
The river was super cold.
Yeah.
So meat bags, riverbank on all cold rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it was still getting pretty cool at night too.
Yeah, it was cold at night.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've had elk out for 8 days before.
Yeah.
Just hanging,
Yeah. The weather's right. And,
Yeah.
in the South, like for the Chronicles, basically we had, an Orion at the trailhead full of ice. So if you have to do it midweek or hunt meat load out. You can bring it out. It's a good tactic to have is go ahead and fill it full of ice, have it in your truck at the trailhead, and then if it gets warm or anything else, you can always get that load of meat out and stashed, and even go back and keep hunting if you have other crew there and not have to leave.
Yeah, we're going to do a YouTube series on that, Damon, because so many people ask me, how do you keep your meat from spoiling? Yeah. And again, to me, it's like, oh, why do you worry about that? It's obvious. You bring 1 or 2 coolers full of nothing but frozen milk jugs, and you never open them, because if you keep them in the shade, you don't open them, and I even put like a horse blanket over them. When the time comes, like you said, I got to pack some meat out. I've still got frozen milk jugs that are still frozen hard. I throw that meat in a cooler, and then I leave enough space where I can put as many milk jugs as possible on top of that meat, and I seal that. That is going to stay good
and
forever.
Don't open it. And don't, once you know what you got in there, don't open it. People like to open and check. And check. It's the worst thing you can do. Just trust me. I know it's tempting. You want to check. Once you've done it a couple times, just get over it. Just keep it closed. Every time you open it, you're like all that cold energy out. Let it heat in. Just
and
keep
we
it closed.
do that because we're on the road for 2-week trips and stuff. And people are like, well, how does it not spoil? Well, like you say, Clay, you left it out there sometimes up to 8 days. And if you're careful with it, it's not like meat instantly has bacteria and starts spoiling and rotting.
It's super clean to start. That was it's a big issue in the South with backcountry hunting because it's hot.
And humid.
And humid. So you hear a lot, you hear just like the antelope you talked about, people say it's bad. How many times have I heard, you can't eat that hog. You can't eat, it's too gnarly, and so it's a rotten up hog and he just stinks and I couldn't eat the meat. A lot of times this is the same deal. You kill that hog though in the swamp, it's 80 degrees, and you wait, you got to go back and get a crew of guys to go in and get it out. That hog's been dead now in hot swamp water, mud for a day. It's probably not going to be very, very good. Even when I'm doing hog hunting, that it's out and as fast as possible in a hanging freezer, or it's cut up and out. On the deer hunt, it was it got up to mid-70s, and so knowing somewhere to get your meat off and hung, whether it's at worst in the shade somewhere. In Tennessee in the show, there's a cave that I know.
Where I saw where you did that. That was cool.
The mouth of the cave is always cold air flowing out. So you just hang the bags there and let in the mouth of a spring will do it. There's always it's always cool there, or cool creek. Just something. Just know, hey, I got to get this meat cool as fast as possible. And we don't really have like a black bear predator issue where I'm at or anything like that. Coons can get after, so you got to hang it high enough to keep them off. But
I always thought everybody knew that evaporation cooled things faster. Because growing up as a kid, if you wanted to keep something cool, you built a little cross brace across a little creek. You found a little piece of plastic to put over it, and you put some limbs over the plastic. And guess what? It was going to be 10 degrees cooler where that evaporation was happening.
And the creek, the flowing water all naturally creates some airflow. So even if it feels like there's no wind and it's dead hot, if it's a flowing stream, it will create natural air from the drag of the water versus the air. And getting it over, that's a great suggestion of getting meat strung up over a small water source that's flowing.
When I was in Alaska, we shot 4 moose, and we were going to be in there for 2 weeks. Well, you got to figure out how you're going to take care of the moose, because it's a long ways back to the boat ramp. We weren't going to shuttle meat. So we knew, find a little creek, and we spent some time. I mean, if you're going to hang moose quarters, you're not just going to hang a little twig across. It took us a while to build that brace, and we had a tarp put over it, keep the moisture off. But it was almost like a cooler in there, the way we sealed that off, and we never lost any meat.
On my caribou hunt with Dad, I did some pre-planning. I'm a
planner.
And I'm a planner. I did some pre-thinking and some pre-planning, and we knew that up on the Brooks Range, I was like, I'm gonna be out in the tundra. There's no log poles to cut. There's no. So I got tripod poles, MSR tent tripod poles, tarp poles. And I flew those in with a little tarp, and I made a tripod of those tarp poles, and then had them use it's like a center bag of meat, and you can kind of hang off the 3 points you're left with at the top.
Right.
That's all on the Orion blog, 2 photos of that, and like the pilot landed and sees that, and he's like, "That's unbelievable. I've never seen that. That's unbelievable."
Yeah.
Like so, but I knew I wouldn't have wood. Some people just like lay meat on the little bushes and stuff, the willows and things.
Yeah.
But we had our own little tripods, all hung up under tarps. And, yeah, I'm taking care of the meats. Super important.
Yeah, we started. When we go elk hunt, we're in there for 2 weeks, and like I said, that elk that I had hanging for 8 days, we started using those, like the survival, the foil.
Oh, survival blankets.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But you can get them in tubes like a sleeping bag. So at night it gets cold, and we would just take that off. But during the day, we'd cover them up with those foil bags. And I don't know if it helped or not, but my thought was it would help to shed some of the heat and kind of retain some of that coolness. But we never had any trouble at all. It was getting up. It'd probably get up to 70 degrees during the day.
Right.
But it was it was freezing at night.
Yeah. Well, you don't got to worry about meat spoilage in that unless you laid it out on a south-facing slope or something in the dirt. Or
where the rattlesnakes hang out.
Yeah. Speaking of rattlesnakes, getting back to that, you guys have just scared everybody from coming to Northern Idaho.
Yes, North Idaho is full of rattlesnakes. They're under every rock, behind every tree.
Clay's saying that he doesn't want you hunting in his back trail.
Yeah, there's grizzlies and rattlesnakes. It's the only thing that's lived there.
But because I mentioned that a lot of people contact me about their concern of grizzly bears. When I antelope hunt and hunt early season mule deer, I don't know we've ever went on a hunt where we didn't encounter rattlesnakes with early season archery pronghorn or archery mule deer. And I'm surprised how many people are spooked by snakes too. But not you, really, Damon, because you got this different look in your eye when someone says snake. You're like a big smile, but now you're going to have all these folks walking around your hills up there in Northern Idaho or Washington or wherever with their snake boots on or whatever.
Well,
all up to the shin, sweating.
It's you only find them in certain habitats. So if you're in a closed canopy timber, you're not going to find a snake, a rattlesnake anyway.
Yeah.
If you're in that that canyon breaklands, and it's especially in the springtime when it's used to get some warm days and sun on those south slopes, you will find snakes.
Yeah.
They're going to be coming out of the rocks,
and they want to be left alone too. They really do, and just don't be looking at your phone. Watch where you're stepping, not your phone.
Don't watch. That's funny. Well, I guess I never give it any concern.
I don't. Yeah. I mean, I'm actively looking for them.
Well, yeah.
And they're hard to find.
Pet them
Most of the time, they just want to hide, and you'll walk right by them, and they won't make a sound.
So now on this podcast, I've made 2 proclamations that I'm going to get bit by a rattlesnake this fall, and a grizzly bear is going to maul me because I said, "I don't worry about that stuff." But oh gosh, guys, I just saw the BHA crew come in here and peek in. Like, how long are you guys going to be hijacking our room here? So I'm thinking we're probably going to have to wind up here. But before we do, I want to make sure that people know where they can find all this cool information from both you guys. Damon, Orion.com.
So,
Orion, and go
OrionCoolers.com. And then there's kind of in the header bar, there'll be the Chronicles.
Okay.
You can go there.
OrionCoolers.com.
OrionCoolers.com.
Okay.
And you can go there and you can see some of the stories from all the different team members and myself, other riders, or right on the homepage at the very bottom. There's usually a kind of a roll around of different stories that have come up, and you can see them all.
And where can they see the first episode of
the Orion Chronicles premiered on Sportsman's April 1st. And Friday.
Is it online anywhere?
It will not. It's not online yet. We have an Orion Chronicles YouTube channel you can go to where I'm putting up a lot of just gear tips and different kind of how-tos and things like that. That's just Orion Chronicles on YouTube. And eventually the shows and stuff will be on YouTube. It just takes a little while. So
when's the next TV episode coming out?
I think if you go to a Sportsman's channel, we'll have the airtimes or the reruns.
Okay.
And then we're just, again, it was more of a kind of cannonball. So we're kind of figuring out the shooting plan. We'll try to get something else fresh for the fall. and then start shooting the main stuff for the series next year. So these TV things take some time, you know. And we're trying to have some fun with it, you know. Since we make all these great products, you know, I have a whitewater background, a fly fishing background, a hunting background. So we're trying to kind of mix it up and show some really just fun ways to get out and have an adventure.
Yeah. So. And any Facebook, Instagram places they can follow the show or the
right now it's probably just be me, Damon Bungard on Instagram and on Facebook. We don't have a page set up yet.
Okay.
I'm sure we will eventually, but right now it's just my personal stuff. And you will probably see snake photos eventually.
Snakes are us. Clay, where can everybody follow you and what you're doing?
My website, twistedstave.com. You can see some of my films right there on the front page. There's a blog that just recently got dramatically expanded. We're putting out a new blog post every weekend, and mostly traditional archery type stuff. Going to have one guy doing survival type things.
Okay.
And so you can find all that there. Again, the YouTube channel, there's lots of stuff on the YouTube channel that's not on the website, so you can check that out too. Got Facebook, Instagram, at Twisted Stave, or Clay Hayes. Just, you'll find it if you type that into Google.
Okay. I like how you say that, Clay. When you said, when you guys are going on your bear hunt, and Clay says, "Oh yeah, I just figured out as I go," and Damon says, "I'm the planner." Just the way you guys have responded to where people can follow you, Damon's got it all dialed in, and Clay's like, just Google it, you'll find me.
It's a nice balance, see, so we get along.
Oh gosh,
personality types.
Yeah. I got a whole list of other things here I wanted to get to, so maybe that just means we're gonna have to figure out another time to get together and and go tell great hunting stories. But and folks, if you want to follow us, obviously you found the podcast, but we're trying to make everything easier to follow us too. So Instagram is at Randy Newberg Hunter. Facebook is Randy Newberg Hunter. My website is randynewberg.com. Our big forum is hunttalk.com. My YouTube channel is Randy Newberg Hunter. So I think I'm pretty consistent about where you can find me. But anyhow, guys, thanks so much. I love talking to people with your perspectives. It's just so relaxed about how you approach hunting, and it's pleasure. It's fun. Yeah, it's got the food aspect. But you guys are... Clay, you might have me knocking on your door someday saying, "All right, I'm here. Teach me how to do this stick bow thing."
Yeah, anytime. I'd be happy to help you.
I don't know. I'm kind of feeling a stick bow Tennessee. You both want to come hunt in Tennessee, and we got a stick bow there. Imagine this crew. I bet if 3 of us chased that buck, one of us would have had a cleaner shot than I had.
I would be the guy. I'd be best suited for chasing it. You guys would be best suited for trying to kill it.
We'll have to set up a deer drive.
There you go. The stick bow deer drive.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for doing everything you do for public lands. And
absolutely.
Backcountry advocacy and hunting ethics and all of it.
Well, thanks, guys. And for all of you listening, thanks for listening. Until the next time, go out, have some fun, enjoy the wild places. The wild places. The wild places. The wild places. The wild places.